Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're diving headfirst into Dermot Crowley's fantastic book, Smart Teams: How to Work Better Together. This framework is a total game changer because it completely shifts our mindset. We're moving away from those endless, exhausting individual productivity hacks, and instead we're forcing ourselves to look at the real root of the problem: systemic team inefficiency. Crowley makes this brilliant argument that team productivity, it isn't just a simple sum of individually productive people. No, it's all about the shared habits we develop together. So I want you to ask yourself this, and be honest. When you send a Slack or Teams message at 8 p.m., do you actually expect a reply right then? Or are you just kind of offloading your own anxiety onto someone else? Ouch, right? It's a tough question, but it gets right to the heart of what we're tackling today. Crowley calls this the game theory angle of productivity, drawing inspiration from Nash's equilibrium. Basically, a truly smart team member practices outward mindfulness. They don't just sit there asking, how can I quickly get this off my plate? Instead, they ask, how is this specific action going to impact the group's overall flow right now? Okay, here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, we'll examine the personal productivity trap. Then, we'll learn how to move from friction to flow, tackle taming the big distractors, and finally, wrap up with creating shared team agreements. Let's get into it. Section 1. The personal productivity trap. Think about it. We spent the last 15 years buying these elaborate daily planners, downloading every new time-blocking app, and endlessly trying to master our to-do lists. And yet, everyone is still completely exhausted. Why is that? Well, if you optimize your own inbox with personal systems, like getting things done, but the rest of your team is relying on frantic reply-alls and vague meetings, you just become this efficient little island in a massive, stormy sea. You can clear your inbox to zero all you want, but the minute you actually need to collaborate, boom, you're dragged right back into the chaos. Individual systems will always eventually break down inside dysfunctional group environments. So here's the absolutely crucial takeaway. You literally cannot hack your way out of a broken team culture. As Crowley puts it, productivity is actually a collective culture problem, not an individual skill gap. Fixing it requires a massive shift in how we view our daily operations. It's fundamentally a leadership and culture issue. The tone has to be set collectively, rather than just crossing our fingers and assuming good behavior is going to magically emerge on its own. Section 2. From friction to flow. Let's be real for a second. Most teams out there are operating with incredibly high friction. And what is friction? It's that everyday productivity loss, that drag, that sort of accidental sabotage happening between totally well-meaning people on a team. Because most of this friction is entirely unintentional, right? Your colleague isn't waking up trying to derail your day. But when they miss a deadline, it creates a bottleneck for you. When they send a super vague email, it takes you 3 more emails just to decode what they actually meant. Or meetings, the ones that should have been a quick 5-minute update but end up draining a whole hour of your time. All of this acts as an accidental drag on everybody's energy, and it keeps teams completely stuck in what Crowley calls a disruptive or passive culture. The ultimate goal here is to move to a state of flow. This is a state of collective alignment where collaboration actually multiplies your output instead of constantly subtracting from it. Now, to reach this state of super productive flow, team members have to actively practice that outward mindfulness we mentioned earlier. They need to be constantly checking in with the group's equilibrium, making sure they're communicating clearly, congregating with real purpose, and collaborating smoothly, all without adding unnecessary noise to the system. To actually transition a group from that disruptive friction over to collaborative flow, Crowley outlines 4 foundational traits that a smart team member needs to have. First off, they must be purposeful. That means being crystal clear on priorities and the actual why behind their tasks, rather than just reacting to whatever random email lands in their inbox first. Second, they have to be mindful, like hyper-aware of how a badly scoped meeting invite is going to affect someone else's ability to focus. Third, punctual. And look, this isn't just about showing up at 9 a.m., it's about respecting time. It means starting and ending meetings exactly when promised and actually hitting those deadlines. And finally, reliable. Following through on commitments so colleagues can actually trust the system and stop that anxious over-checking that clogs up all our communication channels in the first place. Moving on to Section 3, taming the big distractors. Okay, we absolutely have to talk about email. To tame the sheer volume of email noise, we have got to stop using it as a real-time chat tool. Instead, we need to move task assignments into centralized, highly visible team platforms. You see, email is really just a cultural symptom. It's not the root problem. When your inbox is totally chaotic, it's usually a huge red flag that expectations around response times are unclear, and there's this nasty habit of CCing everyone on the team just to be safe. We need a fundamental shift away from push communication, which is just forcing messages into people's already chaotic inboxes, and move towards pull communication. This is where work and projects are clearly visible on centralized boards or platforms, and people can just pull that information when they're actually ready for it. Oh, and before you send anything, always clarify the why, the what, and the who. Next up, meetings. To fix our deeply broken meeting culture, we really must demand fewer, shorter meetings. And we can do this by strictly applying a 5Ws planning checklist alongside enforcing the famous pizza rule for attendee limits. All too often, meetings are just treated as the default way to communicate rather than what they actually are, a super high-cost resource. So before you even think about booking that conference room, run through the 5Ws. Why exactly are we meeting? What type of agenda is it? Like, is it for creation, deliberation, delegation, or presentation? Who actually needs to be there? Where is it happening, and when? And as for that pizza rule, it's brilliantly simple. If you can't feed the entire room with 2 pizzas, you've invited way too many people. And finally, let's talk about the number 5. If we want to stop this endless cycle of manufactured urgency and actually protect our deep work, teams need explicit, shared agreements on response times. Think about establishing a hard rule that a standard email does not require a response within 5 minutes. This constant, everyday firefighting is absolutely destroying our ability to do deep, meaningful work. We have to start treating most urgency as either false or negotiable. Managers, listen up, because you play a massive role here. You need to conduct urgency rather than just cushioning it and blindly passing the stress down the line to your team. Just setting a simple baseline expectation that an email can wait completely takes the pressure off the entire group. Which brings us to our final section, Section 4, Creating Shared Team Agreements. This is where the rubber meets the road. We're taking theory and turning it into reality. Look, top-down policy manuals simply do not change behavior. No one reads a 50-page corporate handbook and magically becomes a stellar collaborator, right? But sitting down together as a group to actively co-create explicit microcultures and team principles, that absolutely does work. People are just far more likely to follow the norms they actually helped write. So gather your team, get a whiteboard, and flip your biggest frustrations into principles. Create hard rules like, we stop reflexive reply all, or we only send emails that explicitly require an action or a decision. And this is crucial. Leaders absolutely must model these behaviors. You can't just tell your team to respect focus time and then go bombard them with trivial emails on a Sunday morning. It just doesn't work that way. The beauty of this is that literally anyone can start a ripple of productivity on their own team. You really don't need to be the CEO to create a highly productive microculture. Start small. Start with the people you work with most closely every single day. Build that alignment, make your team's work visible to each other, and choose simple, intuitive tools that the team will actually adopt. And remember, leaders have to act as conductors of urgency. Create small, totally manageable productivity projects that the team can actually rally around. Something fun, like a noise reduction month. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final, fascinating question to chew on. What's harder? Getting people to stop sending 200 emails a day, or getting leaders to stop managing by constant, relentless urgency? It is quite the tension, isn't it? As we reflect on how we might be accidentally sabotaging each other with all this friction, take a moment this week to actually put this framework into practice. I challenge you to conduct a meeting diet this week. Look at your calendar, ruthlessly apply the 5Ws, and see exactly what you can trim. If you enjoyed diving into this, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss our next explainer. See you next time.